Hello there, I'm Nat Wallen. I have been a real estate agent here in Charleston, South Carolina since 1995. Welcome to the How to Remember Names in Real Estate course. Now, remembering names, it's not for the genius mindsets out there. It's not for people that have great memory. It's for people like you and me. We're busy, we're juggling lots of things, and our intentions are good, but sometimes other things get in the way of remembering people's names. It happens all the time. This is a very short course that will teach you how to exercise the muscle in your brain that will help you remember names and faces. And speaking of exercise, I'm going to flash some words on the screen over the next 10 seconds, and I want you to try to remember them. So here we go. Okay, I'm going to show them to you one more time as I'm going through this, just to give you a fighting chance on remembering all of these words. And maybe you're concentrating really hard, you're actively trying to remember this list, and maybe you're succeeding. Do you remember all of them? If so, well, then you have a sharp mind. But if you're like me, you might remember half of them. And now pepper in an emergency situation happening in the background. Your client's truck is circling the closing parking lot and they didn't get funded. And the seller's a jerk, so there's no chance of an early occupancy. And now they're gonna have to find a hotel because closing got delayed and their U-Haul is sitting there at the closing office and ready to go to the new house to be unpacked. That's a little bit of stress for you and me. And if that hasn't happened to you, it will. Delays happen. And as many times as we tell people, don't move until you own the house, they don't listen. They put themselves in these situations, but we bear the brunt of the stress, at least most of it. Now, these are the everyday situations that we real estate agents are faced with. And meeting new people and thinking about these types of things and remembering a family of five's names at the same time, it can be problematic. So let's go back to the list of words that I shared with you. Do you remember all of them? If you do, great, but it's likely that you don't. I wouldn't. But now let's do another exercise. This time, instead of sharing a list of words with you, I want to get you to picture just a few things in your mind. So here we go. We've got a hamburger on a plate with French fries and a pickle, the paper plate. And now let's add a dollop of mayonnaise to that as well. And in that dollop of mayonnaise is a smiley face made with a few squirts of ketchup. The next item, much simpler, we've got an apple and an orange, also on a paper plate. And now we've got cheese, Munster cheese. And then we have 2 loaves of bread, each in their plastic bags that they come in from the grocery store. And then the final items, 2 popsicles, they can be any color. So what are the chances of remembering those items? Now I wrote the list, so I have it down in memory. Let's pause this video for 10 seconds and try to remember that list. Go ahead. Okay, you probably did much better than the string of words, and maybe you got them all right, but maybe you missed a few. The items were a hamburger with fries on a plate with a dollop of the smiley face of mayonnaise, a plate with an apple and an orange on it. We've got cheese, we had 2 loaves of bread, and 2 popsicles. My popsicles were both red. Memories are made up of images, not words, but when people tell us their names, most real estate agents, we focus on the word they tell us. But what does the word David actually look like? What about Mary? What about Lisa? Those are tough ones to remember. But with images, you can actually visualize these things. And here's the trick. The crazier the image, the stickier the memory. So let's try that example one more time. And I'll just do the first 2. But this time, let's make the images a little crazier. So item 1. We've got a hamburger on a plate with fries and a pickle in the middle, a paper plate, with a happy face dollop of mayonnaise. And for most people, that's gross. My wife can't stand the sight or smell of mayonnaise. We haven't had mayonnaise in my house for 20 years. Now picture that hamburger with fries on a plate with pickles and the happy dollop of mayonnaise with wings like in Harry Potter. And this plate is flying around your kitchen during breakfast like a Quidditch match. The morning sun is beaming through the window. You can feel the heat. and the plate is flying around like the finch. That's the little ball in the Quidditch game in Harry Potter. So this plate is zipping around like Quidditch, spilling fries on your kids' shoulders, and your children are grossed out with the idea of having to eat a pickle with fries drenched in mayo and a little bit of ketchup for breakfast. So what's that first image again? It's kind of hard to forget that, right? All right, what's item number 2? We'll make it much easier. It's a plate with an apple and an orange. Not that extraordinary, right? So I remembered it because I wrapped them in a stinky sock and then put them on the plate. And I pictured a tube sock on a plate. The stripes on it were red and blue. So do you see my point? The tube sock is the crazy part of the image. I remembered the shape. And that's the glue that makes memories stick. And I hinted at this with the flying hamburger plate, the crazy image of the kitchen. So this is the simple exercise that you can go through when you meet new people to remember them. But how does this logic apply to remembering names and faces? So let's say we have Patty here. You meet her at an open house and you have a little chat, and then someone walks in, and then 2 more people, and you can't be rude. You have to greet people. You're kind of multitasking this way of meeting people, and you need a good way to quickly apply this logic. So here's my friend Joe, and here's how you'll remember his name. First, you'll look at his head. It's a good-looking head. It's well-rounded. Sorry, Joe. What's the first image you can associate with Joe? Think about it. Your first image is the right image, by the way. So for me, it's a cup of coffee, a cup of Joe. Now place the cup right beside his head, and this all happens in milliseconds. And since the image needs to stick, we need to make this cup of coffee stickier and crazier. So let's make it a 2-gallon cup of coffee, and it's steaming. You can see the steam coming out, and it's kind of spilling on his shoulder. So every time you see Joe now, you'll picture this giant floating cup of coffee right beside his head. So Joe's an easy name to remember. I mean, 1 syllable, 1 common name, but now you've got a pretty simple way to remember him. This 5-gallon or 2-gallon cup of coffee right next to his head, spilling on him. It's getting stains on his white shirt. Mine's the same way. My name is Nat. So just picture a volleyball-sized gnat flying by my head. And here's the trick. If you can attach another sensory function to it, like smell or sound, it gets even stickier. So with Joe, it's easy. Picture the smell of coffee and fresh beans from Costa Rica percolating. And with me, you can hear the volleyball-sized gnat buzzing around in your ears. I attach the smell of coffee and the sound of the buzzing gnat to these images to make them even stickier. So let me share one more complex scenario, and this is a real-life situation that happened to me with a new neighbor about 10 years ago. So their names are Tim and Elizabeth. Tim's was easy. He's kind of skinny. It's 1 syllable. My first image was a tall, slim Jim right next to his head. Tall, slim Tim. It stuck. Easy peasy. But Elizabeth took some thinking. And one day they were walking their dogs, headed our way. I was with my wife, and I said, okay, I need to remember this girl's name once and for all. They're going to be our neighbor for a long time. And this brings up a good point. Just because you know this information, the stuff I'm teaching you right now and how it all works, it will not work automatically. You have to work it. So it's like a hammer. It won't hammer nails unless you pick it up and start swinging it. It's not going to automatically build a home for you. So you have to remember to use these tools, this thing that I'm teaching you. So Elizabeth, she was walking down the street, and I got my wife to remind me of her name. And then I started to sound the words together. And from Eliz, for some reason, I got lizard. And then breath fell into place naturally. So when they got to us, I took a few moments to picture this giant lizard's head right next to hers, and it was breathing really heavily, like she was exhausted. So there's this giant lizard's head, like a Komodo dragon's head, right next to hers, and it was just breathing, and I could kind of feel and smell the breath. And they moved in 8 years ago, and to this day, every time I see them, I picture this crazy lizard's head, kind of like the movie Rango with Johnny Depp, smoking a cigarette, and I'm smelling the smoke, and he's breathing heavily. And as the smoke puffed out, I could see the lizard's breath. Lizard breath, Elizabeth, it's the first 2 images that came to my mind, and the First image, like I said, is the right image, and that's it. I now remember her names. And that's how you can remember names in real estate. You have to use this thing. Remember to swing the hammer when you meet new people. Visualize. Say their names back to them so you hear yourself say it. There's that audio element, and apply the crazy image glue, and then you'll be golden. Okay, if you like this and you're curious about some of the other things, some of the other out of the ordinary things, I should say, that we work on here at Expert, take a look at the Sell More Homes, Feel More Human Expert CRM webinar. There's a lot to the full ecosystem, and it solves a lot of the problems that we real estate agents faced. I added another video in this course to give you a quick preview, and below that is a link to the full webinar. It's automated, and you can schedule it anytime at your convenience. Happy to answer any questions about any of this in the ecosystem, so just look for me in the Expert Influencers group here in the Expert community, which is where you're watching this course. And thank you so much for being here. Watch the next video and then pick a time to watch the automated webinar. Thanks again. Bye.